Good morning. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. My name is Dr. Felice Cellini, and this is our Why Wait for Recovery Sunday morning recovery community meeting. And thank you guys for being here.
Good morning. My name is Haiti, and I'm an addict in recovery. I'm in recovery from compulsive overeating, emotional eating. I'm a binge eater, a purger. I am also a drug addict in recovery.
And I'm a drug addict, alcoholic, anorexic in recovery, important part in recovery. And we're so glad that you're all here with us to share our recovery this morning.
Right. So we are two friends in recovery that get together, that discuss the solution and what we do to stay in recovery. People watch us. We also like spreading the message. We're not part affiliated with any formal group. We live stream via Facebook and on YouTube as well, so please join us. And if you want to hop into the meeting, just IM us and we'll give you a meeting ID for a virtual room where you can jump in and join the conversation, because it really is about sharing our secrets at the end of the day.
It's about recovery and getting well. And today we're going to talk about acceptance. So I want to read from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous this morning, and then we're going to open ourselves up for discussion. I read this Thursday at the end of our meeting, and I'm going to read it again today so that we can talk about it, because I think that it's for me, it's one of the most important parts of my recovery, the thing that helps me to stay in recovery, actually the most. And so this is from the big book of AA. Acceptance is the answer to all of my challenges today. Not some of them, but all of them. When I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way that it's supposed to be at this moment. Until I could accept my addiction, I couldn't stay clean. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. And so I think that a super important part of our recovery, or my recovery anyway, was understanding that the things that happen in my life that are happening around me are happening around me. And that the only thing that I am in control of is my own perspective and my own actions. And that the more I allow the world to turn the way that it's turning, and the less I fight against that, the happier I am. You know, if I want to get upset because it's raining, I could get upset because it's raining, but it doesn't serve me because it's raining. So if I'm upset because you cut me off in traffic, it doesn't serve me to be upset because you cut me off in traffic. Okay, that happened. And so the more I can look at the world and say, okay, that happened, and know that my attitude is still my own, the happier I get to be.
So I look at it from the way that my ego has always been my biggest challenge. You know, I set myself up, I've got this inflated image of the things that I deserve, in terms of, you know, if you do what I tell you to do, then everything's okay in my world. And this is when I was using that I've got certain expectations of the world should be turning out. My life should look a certain way because I deserve this, and this is the way that it should be, and as an absolute. And why doesn't it look the way that I thought it would when I'm 50, almost 53, or what I thought it would look when I was in my 30s? And everyone should be catering to me as well, in terms of this was my perception before I started getting into recovery. And what I'm learning is those were the reasons and the excuses that I used to justify my using. That was the best reason to pick up, because if I could pick up, then I could numb these feelings and not have to just really look at the biggest problem in my life that really is me. You know, me and my thinking at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you're not accepting the way that the world is.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
And also, you know, my image and the way that I think it should play out isn't that good, because my best work got me into this room in terms of a justified using, and it kept me in active addiction. When I let things play the way that they should work out, they generally work out in a totally different way that enables me to enjoy the journey, because it takes out that stress of this is the outcome that has to happen, and rather have the faith and the hope that things are going to just work out, and they do.
Yeah, and the thing about the faith and the hope too, I'm glad that you said that. The faith and the hope that things will work out. The world turns the way that it does. People get sick and they die. People have accidents, like bad things happen, right? Our kids don't pass their class. Whatever's going on, it's going on. So for me, it's having faith that the world is turning the way that it does. Whether it comes out good or bad in the end, it's still happening the way that it's happening. So the difference is the journey. Um, it's not just that things are going to be okay. Now people pray like, oh, God, like, so and so is sick, and I'm going to pray that they're going to get better. For me, life is going to show up the way that it shows up. What I will hope for, people call praying, I'm going to use the word hope. What I will hope for is patience and tolerance and understanding. Because when I have patience and tolerance and understanding, I'm accepting the world as it's happening around me. And understanding that the only thing that I do have control over is my attitude toward whatever is happening.
And I think it also gives us that ability to choose happy. I like looking at things, and I've got a weird perspective. I'm an addict. What can I say? So when I look at 1,000-year-old tree, it's been there 1,000 years, no matter what has happened around the world, good weather, bad weather, droughts, good times, whatever, it's still there. There have been so many people that have come during the time that tree's been growing, and it's still growing. The sun still rises, it still sets. I have that choice every single day to start off the day to choose happy, or I can kind of start off being discontent because things didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, and I had that preconceived notion. So I think when I step into acceptance and willingness just to do my best, then things have a totally different way of progressing.
Yeah, and just because we're doing our best to do our best doesn't mean that everything fabulous is going to happen. It just means that what's happening is happening, and I don't need to fight against it. We talk about, I like to talk about fighting against a wave because we're in Florida. And so when there's a really big wave, when you're in the ocean and a really big wave comes and you try to stand up strong against it, it knocks your butt down, right? It knocks you down. When a really big wave comes and you relax and breathe and let it just fall over you, you get right back up. And so for me, it's not fighting against the energy that the universe is putting out, because the universe is a whole lot bigger than we are. Right? Just go with the flow, like they used to say. It's going with the flow and understanding that the world turns the way that it turns. And whether I'm happy or unhappy or fighting against it or allowing it to happen, it's still going to turn the way that it turns. The world doesn't turn the way that I want in my time. The world turns the way that it's turning in the universe's time. And the more I'm accepting of that, the happier I am.
As you're talking about this kind of triggers a thought. I took on a lot of stuff that happened around me that didn't happen to me. So I would take on all that chaos that I was like front row seat and active participant. I don't know if that was my ego speaking, that I had to be the most informed and the most whatever. But when I actually look at it, 99% of the stuff that happened on a daily basis really was none of my business.
Yeah, and I think that for some of us, that's part of our addiction, because we're as addicted to that chaos and that tragedy as we are with whatever else is going on inside of us. And I think that the more that I'm looking at your shtick, the less I'm looking at my own, right? The more I'm paying attention to what's happening with you, the less I have to pay attention to me and how it is that I can be working on me so that I can be of service to you instead of stepping into your chaos.
But if I look at me, I have to be responsible for my recovery.
You don't have to be, but you can choose to be. We could just hate ourselves, which I did for quite a while.
I've perfected that, okay?
There you go.
Yeah, it's one of my degrees. Beating myself up and beating myself to a pulp.
Yeah.
It's
Should we open up?
It should.
Okay, so let's talk. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I wanted to share this, right? When you talk about acceptance, the thing is, let's say, let me give you a scenario in which I take a friend out, right? But let's say I'm all messed up. I'm using. Drank a couple beers, smoked some blunts, took a couple hits and stuff.
Okay.
And,
So you're out and you're high and
and I'm not the same person that I am when I'm, sober.
When you're clean.
Right. And then I try to hide all that,
Mhm.
right? And try to act, sober and whatnot. And I appear to that person and I act a fool,
Mhm.
right? I act a fool, and afterwards, it doesn't really, sink in until, that soberness starts, coming in, and then you realize, even though it's sort of like a blur what you did,
Mhm.
you realize you messed up,
Mhm.
and there's nothing you can do about it.
Correct.
You can accept it, but the thing is, I mean, how do you sort of forgive you, knowing that you did something wrong? You can accept that you did something wrong,
Mhm.
but it's still difficult to sort of just, you know, brush it off. Like it's
Are you
like,
talking about forgiving yourself?
yeah,
So
and
here's-
acceptance and forgiveness.
Right. So here's the thing. I was high. I screwed up. That happened. I can live there as long as I want. Or I could say, I was high, I screwed up, and that happened. So the only thing that I could do right now is accept the fact that I could choose to do is because I could do a bunch of things. I could choose to beat myself up for the rest of my life. Or I could choose to say, I'm going to do my best right now to do my best and show up and be the best person that I can be. There's nothing we could do about what happened 2 seconds ago. It's done. There's nothing we can do about that. Living there keeps us sick. Living today and saying, I'm going to show up and do my best to do my best, apologizing to the people that we stepped on along the way. It's funny because I'm doing that with my sponsor right now. So that's the step that we're doing. Apologizing to the people that we heard along the way to say, I'm sorry, are words, and that's great. To show that I'm doing my best to do my best, I believe, is the best way of apologizing. Say you're sorry, forgive yourself because it's done, and move on. It's like I got a 43 on a test, let's say. It's done. Test is over. You're talking about somebody else's feelings. You're talking about hurting somebody else's feelings or upsetting somebody else. Your only responsibility to the universe, I believe, is to show up now and do your best to do your best. You can't change the way that I feel. That's about me. You could show up and do your best, but you can't change the way that I feel. I'll feel or not feel how I feel or don't feel in my time, but you can't change how I feel. There are people that are going to be accepting of our apology, and there are people that aren't. Remember, we heard enough people. When I got clean 10 years ago, my sister and I, who are inseparable, she didn't talk to me for a year. She didn't talk to me for a year. So it wasn't up to me to change the way that she felt. It was up to me to say, I'm sorry. And it was up to me to show up and do the next right thing and see if that forgiveness was going to come. I already screwed up.
How do you shut that noise that says, if only you can go back and not have done the things that you did before, that and this and that?
You realize that nothing's going to change that. That's a fact. Your feelings are your feelings. The fact is, I can't go back and change what happened 2 seconds ago. Right? I'm going to drop this on the floor. Can I undrop it?
No.
Nothing that I can do can undrop that. No matter how much I want it to undrop, no matter how much I wish it to undrop, no matter how much I beat myself up because that dropped to the floor because I dropped it, there's nothing I can do about it. It's done. It's a done deal. Living in the past keeps us from getting well today. It's done. Okay, that happened. It's not the act, it's the emotion that you have attached to that act.
Yeah.
The emotion that you have is that I'm an idiot, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I can't believe I did that, I'm ashamed, I'm guilty. Those things don't serve you today. What serves you today is, okay, humility. I screwed up. I didn't do the right thing, and I'm going to do my best to do my best today, to do what's right. And the universe is going to turn the way that it does. The only thing you're responsible for, showing up and doing your best to do your best. We can't undo that piece of paper that's on the floor.
So
Yes.
Am I allowed to respond to
Yeah,
that?
of course.
So, he gave that example, and you said what you said. And I think the part that maybe we didn't touch on, that maybe as addicts we tend to think about is, so I did this to this person, and I want this thing to go away. I want to make it better.
Mhm.
We have to understand too that sometimes people have certain boundaries, and maybe if you cross a boundary, you may not be able to go back, and that's part of your acceptance. You say what you have to say, you apologize, you make your amends, whatever you call it,
Of course.
and you have to be comfortable with the fact that just because you did that doesn't mean it's going to change the situation. A person might say, yeah, I forgive you, and yeah, whatever, but it's not going to make it go back.
Exactly. And so I dropped it on the floor. It's done.
Right.
Right? I'm not responsible for how you feel about me because of what I did yesterday. The only thing I could do is show up today and do my best to do my best. And you'll forgive me or you won't. Like I said, Randy didn't forgive me for a year. And that's okay. That was the wreckage of my past. And I have to own that. I have to say, you know what? I upset her enough, and I made her scared enough, and I made her cry enough, and I made her, she loved me enough to hate me enough at that time, and I did all of that. That's what I did. Can I undo it? No. Everybody here has been in active addiction, knows that we've done some stuff that if we could go back and change it, we would. More importantly, we get stuck in, if I could change the way that you feel about me, I would, but I can't. The only thing that I could do is do my best. If she never talked to me again, that's about her and where she is and what her boundaries are. Her boundaries were, and she said to me, I'm not going to wait. Every time the phone rings, I'm not going to worry about if it's somebody that's calling me to tell me my sister's dead. She was done. And that was it. And that's all that she could accept. And that's okay. That's about her. I can't change that. I could just show up and do my best to do my best. Did you say something else?
No, I think you just covered it with that part.
Thank you, Ange.
So I think one of the things recovery has also given me is I kept going into that space of guilt, shame, and demoralization through constantly doing the same actions. And one of the things of stepping into recovery is starting to learn my challenges and taking my learning out of situations. So is it my ego that I feel insecure, that I want people to like me all the time, that makes me want to get high before I go see them or I use while I'm with them? So what is my part in this that needs to be able, that I can work on to shift that paradigm? Because for my recovery, I'm responsible. How people react around me, I've got no control over it. But the one person I can change, the things I can change is my perspective and my actions. That's a limited control in my world.
Yeah, and letting go of the past is a really, really, it's an ouch, but we need to do it so that we can move forward, no matter how bad it feels. Yes.
I just wanted to say something on these grounds as well. I know with, good morning. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I'm learning with my sponsor while I'm doing this step too is sometimes we're just not ready. We have to give ourselves time as well to not only look at the bad stuff that we've done, but also look at the good stuff that we've done. However, we do beat ourselves up a lot. And the one thing I learned, I'm going through the same thing actually with my sister. It's been 2 years since she's spoken to me. But cleaning my side of the street, saying that I'm sorry for that, actually has allowed me to have a lot of gratitude. Sorry that I did what I did. But at the end of the day, it's really up to her to forgive me or not forgive me. And it may never come from me, but I am grateful enough that I am here enough to even want to be sorry. Because it used to be, well, I'm not sorry. She did this to me and she did that to me and she did this to me and she did that to me, and I'm not taking responsibility for anything. It was not my fault. But it is, and it was. And showing up enough to have that is allowing me gratitude. And having gratitude is showing me how to live in grace, how to be calm, how to know when it's time for certain things for me.
And also, when you're living in gratitude, you're living clean, you don't have to wake up every day ashamed anymore.
No.
And scared.
And I don't allow
Yeah.
myself to.
Good.
I'm not ashamed anymore. I can talk about things that I used to never be able to talk about. Number one, I would cry. Number two, it always made me feel like, oh, if these people knew this about me, they would never want to talk to me again, because this is what happened to me. And I don't want anybody to look at me like I'm not a normal, functioning woman, So it was like, I'm not telling you anything. I am good. This is my smile. You know, my smile is hiding everything.
Yeah, ego.
But exactly, and
Yeah.
it's not that anymore.
Good for you.
I love that you bring this up because, you know, when I was using was to numb all my emotions, all of a
Exactly.
sudden starting to recognize and feel is a
Yes.
whole new learning process. And one of my things is indignation. I sit in the same place. So when I become indignant, then I need to start looking at my recovery because then that's on me. So I know something's up with me on my side of the street. So I love you said that. That just like so resonates with me. And when you step into that gratitude and that compassion, all of a sudden the way I've noticed with myself that I view the world is on a totally different basis. Maybe they're having a bad day, you know, maybe something's up with them and their relationship or whatever. I mean, there's a whole
Yeah.
lot of other stuff happening beyond me.
Yeah, and again, as you said, most importantly, taking responsibility for the wreckage of our past. I did that. I caused that. This is how I was. It's not how I am today, though. But it definitely was the way that I was, and there's nothing I could do about that. But what I can do is what I'm doing today, right?
And I can't always live in this big gratitude bubble
course
because
not.
I am an addict.
Of
You know
course
what I
not.
mean? I can't walk around every day being, you know, I'm so grateful you cut me off and made me slow down.
Yeah, but you know what? And yes, we are addicts. You're also a human being.
Yeah.
Right. So we're also going to have this human experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how much, because we do that a lot. I think that we still tend to beat ourselves up with that word. Well, I'm an addict. Okay. Yes, we are addicts and we have that addicted brain. But in recovery, a lot of us do a lot better than people who aren't addicts, who aren't in recovery.
Well, you know, I'm also learning not only am I an alcoholic, but I'm an addict who's working steps.
Right.
And it makes me feel better. I am an addict who's trying to live in gratitude. That makes me feel better instead of, you know, I don't say it, but instead of totally being like, I'm Shannon, I'm an addict. Sometimes that makes me feel, because I'm so much more. I'm a good friend, I'm a good woman, I'm all these other really positive things. So some days, yes, I am these things, but also I'm all these other things.
You know, when I raise my hand, I say I'm grateful to be in recovery.
Yeah, that's,
I don't say addict Felice. I say I'm grateful to be in recovery. My name is Felice. Because if I define myself by my recovery, listen, you know, first step, I'm an addict. My life had become unmanageable. No shit. That was definitely the truth. I don't got a challenge with that. But right now, I'm a woman who's working on recovery. And so I prefer to define myself like that. When I introduce myself to people, I don't tell my patients, oh yeah, you know, your doctor's an addict, right? I say, I'm in recovery. Everybody knows I'm in recovery. All the cool kids, by the way, are in recovery. Shout out to all the cool kids working on their recovery.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the truth, you know, and we're all recovering from something. I don't care if you're an alcoholic or an addict or a binger or whatever, you puke or it don't matter. Or you're a human being, or you're a human being working on something inside of yourself. We're all recovering from something, and the more that we work on our recovery, which means the more that we do trust the process and have acceptance that the world is turning the way that it's turning, and there ain't a whole lot that we could do about that, the happier I think that we are, right? If I'm not fighting against what's happening, I'm a lot happier. We say the Serenity Prayer how many times a day? 8 billion.